Hey guys, Viking Reefing here. I hosted a poll on my Instagram page where I asked you guys, the community, which topics I should be covering next on my YouTube page. The most requested topic was how to maintain a white sandbed. This seems to be kind of a mythical beast that a lot of people are chasing. I got a tons of questions on it basically every day over at Instagram. So let's cover it here. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet that'll fix all the issues in terms of keeping your sandbed clean. The best way is a combination of ways, basically, and I'll go over them here. I've also checked out my YouTube statistics, and I've seen that it's about between 5 and 10% of the viewers of my videos are subscribers, the rest are not. So don't forget to hit that subscription box and hit the bell icon as well. Due to how YouTube works, there's basically zero chance that you'll see my videos unless you hit the notification bell. They just get swallowed up for whatever reason in terms of other stuff that you're subscribed to. So let's get into it. My first tip is that a clean sandbed is a white sandbed. There's a misconception in reefing that you shouldn't touch your sandbed. If you post on a forum and stuff, people will tell you don't gravel vac it, don't stir it, or anything. I'm here to tell you that those people are wrong. You should definitely maintain your sandbed. There's no good reason as to why you shouldn't. I believe that a lot of that stuff comes from, well, basically outdated information. A long time ago, we used to use deep sand beds for basically filtration to get rid of nitrates. But that was at a point when we were kind of limited in terms of export methods. So we had deep sand beds, and it is true that you really shouldn't be messing with those because very deep sand beds has a tendency to accumulate a bunch of sulfur and stuff deep in the deeper layers of the sand bed. If you gravel vac one of those or stirred it up, there was a very good chance that you would nuke your tank because all that sulfur gas and stuff would be released into the water column, and that in turn will kill a bunch of stuff. Luckily, that's no longer the case. There's also people who says that you shouldn't be doing any manual cleaning of your sand bed. You can have gobies, Nassarius snails, sand-sifting sea stars, and a bunch of other little critters, and they'll maintain your sandbed. That is true to an extent, I'd say. They do a good job in terms of maintaining the top layers of sand, but they will also only maintain that top layer. There's always a bunch of stuff that accumulates in the deeper layers of your sandbed. And you really need to get rid of that junk. Not just to keep your sandbed clean and white, but for the overall health of your tank. I believe I have about 4 gobies in this tank. They'll constantly sift the sand and keep it relatively white. I also have a couple of sand-sifting sea stars, Nassarius snails, and 5 or 6 fighting conches. I vacuum out my sandbed about every 3 weeks or something, and there's tons of crud that I'll suck up from it. So obviously they don't do a good job in terms of getting rid of all that detritus and old junk that just accumulates over time in the deeper layers. So that's tip number 1. Vacuum out your sandbed. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's well worth it. It takes me about 45 minutes to do a very thorough clean of my sandbed on this tank. So you could do it, you can do it as well. And I can tell if I'm slacking on my sandbed maintenance after a couple of months and stuff. Things like cyano might appear, and diatom algae as well. And as soon as I clean out my sand bed, that all goes away. So I think there's a definite correlation with maintaining a clean sand bed and having a white sand bed. My second tip is to keep on top of nutrients. If you can maintain fairly low nutrients, say nitrates at least below 15 and phosphates below 0.0, well, 5 or 6, that'll very much help in terms of eliminating algae that grows on the sand. And obviously the maintaining of the sand bed in terms of gravel vacuuming and stuff like that will also help in this regard. But lower nutrients will definitely help you in terms of getting rid of nuisance algae on your sand bed. If you have cyano issues and stuff like that, you should also be checking out your nutrients. They might be high, or they might actually be low as well, or they might just be unbalanced. So you want some nutrients, but not too much, and you want them in the proper ratio to one another. I try to keep my ratio of nitrates and phosphates at around 50 to 100, and I think that overall works well. My third tip, well, it doesn't really go against what I said in my first tip in terms of maintaining your sand bed, but you should have a good diversity of critters that will help you get stuff out of these sand for you. If I didn't have a bunch of gobies and inverts to help me, I bet I would have to clean out my sand bed at least every 2 weeks, if not every week. So having a good cleanup crew really does help. I find that the most effective animals for keeping your sand bed clean are gobies. I like the Valencia pollinaris gobies. I believe they are called diamond gobies as a trade name. They do a very good job in terms of filtering your sand. They get fairly deep in it when they're going at it, and they're not a huge pain in the butt in terms of spreading sand all over the place. There are other species, such as Valencia strigata, that, while very good at sifting the sand, what they do is basically they take a mouthful, they have a tendency to swim up into the water column and just bomb all their corals with those little tiny grains of sand. I also find that conches are a very good option because they will go into all the little nooks and crannies that the gobies won't. So they can really get in there with their long trunk and clean out any diatoms that you might have growing in those hard to get places. Nasarius snails, I guess they do kind of help. I don't really see a huge benefit of having those in terms of sand bed health, but they are very good in terms of removing excess food and things of that nature. They're very good at, if you have a fish that dies or something like that, they're very good at consuming that carcass. But I don't really think that they benefit the sand bed overly much, at least not directly. They might do something once they're burrowing inside of it or something, but I wouldn't get a bunch of Nasarius snails and think that they will help you keep a white sand bed. I also find that running a large UV sterilizer on ozone helps a lot in terms of nuisance algae. My theory behind that, especially in terms of the sand bed, is that when you have a bunch of sand sifters, for example gobies and stuff like that, when they disturb the sand bed, they will get those algae spores and algae, well, I guess particles and cells up in the water column. Then they go down into the overflow, where either the ozone will oxidize them and kill them off that way, or the UV sterilizer will basically just radiate them to death, so that the end result is a smaller algae mass that you have to deal with. So if you aren't running UV and ozone, I would really give those things a go. They have a bunch of other positive effects as well, but in terms of the sand bed, I find that they're very helpful. The next tip might sound like a stupid one, but it is actually to get white sand. I've been doing this for, well, a bit over 2 decades now, and I found a huge difference in terms of how different sands perform. The sand I'm using currently is biosand from Aquaforest, and I've never had a sand that stayed this white. It was stupidly white when I've got it. I've never had a sand that started off that white, and it has really kept the well, the white color over time as well. I've had other stuff that no matter what you did to it, got some sort of weird algae growth or something on it that was basically impossible to get rid of. My theory would be that some other sands, the grains might be more porous, so there's going to be more opportunity for things to attach and start growing on it. But this Aquaforest sand is awesome. And a kind of a supplemental tip is to have good circulation across your sand bed to make sure that you remove any, well, things that might crud up the sand bed, such as uneaten food, fish waste, and things of that nature. And that also means that you need a sand that can handle flow very well. The Aquaforest sand is the best I've found in that regard as well. It's very fine, but it handles flow like a boss. If you go up in grain size to be able to push the flow higher, I find that rougher grains will also be growing more kind of nuisance algae on them. So I would really recommend a finer grain, and I can't say enough good things about the Aquaforest biosand. And my final tip is to basically just get into your tank, say once a week or something, with some sort of a rod or whatever, and just stir the sand bed up. That way you will release a lot of that crud that accumulates, and if you have a filter roller and filter floss, that stuff will get up into the water column, it'll go down the overflow, and then basically gets filtered out. If you want to boost the efficiency of this, you could also do some bubble scrubbing whilst you're doing it, because if we can get some micro bubbles going throughout the tank, they will attach to all those little particles of detritus, make them float up into the surface, and they'll have a much greater chance of making it down the overflow, making the actual stirring a lot more effective. Those were my tips on how to maintain a white sand bed, a very frequently asked question that I get on Instagram and here on YouTube as well. I hope you found some of those tips helpful, and so that you too can have a sparkling white sand bed. It's really not that difficult. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you think that I've earned it. Be safe, happy reefing, and have a good one. Bye.